death. Children here know they were born with enemies, the legacy of yesterday's children. 20 years of what both sides call the Troubles have taken nearly 2,800 lives and scarred most families, Catholic and Protestant. But this is only the latest round in a conflict that burns back 8 centuries between native Irish stock and transplanted British. Not just over religion, over land, food, jobs, political power. And for each side, the generations of yesterday's children are present in the relentless memories of today. If custom says good fences make good neighbors, desperation says this. The so-called peace wall between Roman Catholic and Protestant neighborhoods in West Belfast has grown higher and higher over the years. There's a door through it here. It's locked. Martin Carr is one of yesterday's children and knows very well what today's are going through.
The kids have their own toughness. They won't let their feelings out. They're just tough little men.
Martin was 6 when the Troubles broke out and grew up watching them tear apart his family. His brother Eamon lies with fellow Republicans in Milltown Cemetery, murdered in the night by rival paramilitaries. To another brother, wary of being identified, that night will never end.
There's no way can I find anything to forgive these people. No way.
They rarely see Brother John, whose home under the peace wall was a nightly target for Protestant bricks till they added the no man's land, or Brother Jimmy, who's moved to America. Nobody even has a snapshot of him. Martin Carr fled the Troubles into the arms of the church. He hopes some of today's kids will find their peace there, but he knows the IRA offers youth activities too.
Certainly we'll try and keep them and train them as leaders in the community and as leaders in the Scouts. But other than that, there's very little we can do.
You can't shield a kid from realities of life. I was sheltered, for many years, but I soon learned if you're put in an environment where there is violence, kids soon take it up.
George Conlon is a Protestant, another of yesterday's children.
Wee Stevie McRae was shot dead there.
He was 11 when the Troubles came. By 16, he'd been beaten up by Catholics. His family had been forced out of its home. And here, in a supposedly safe new area, Catholic raiders gunned down a neighbor.
Oh, that was Billy Hanner, just outside the door. He was shot through the head, and another man beside him, Cleland, was shot through the face. That had I took strong reaction to that. I didn't like that at all, it upset me. I didn't actually see the shooting. By the time I heard the shots, I'd run upstairs and put my younger sister, Mandy, in the bathroom. Then I went outside. By that time my parents were outside. I saw him laying there with his head blew off.
A year later, at 17, George was part of a group that shot through a Catholic's window to scare him. The man was behind the window. He died, and George spent the next 12 years in prison.
And it's only really now that I've realised, that my involvement didn't achieve nothing. It just prolonged the suffering of our people in this country.
Including the suffering of his own family.
We never had a celebration of a Christmas for 5 years when George was in prison. Mandy never had an 18th birthday or 21st birthday party. It was something I couldn't accept, that he was going to be in prison so long.
He realises himself now what he done it for. What has he done it for? Nothing. Nobody cares. Only his family. Nobody.
Can you go to the next one?
George has a wife now and one of today's kids to try to keep from following in his footsteps. But at age 31, George has no job, no skills, and a prison record.
I feel as if I'm still in prison even on the outside, where I'm not given a chance, to make a life for myself, to take myself away from violence or whatever.
Charges include false imprisonment,
It's always around the corner.
harm, and possessing offensive weapons. All 6
I can't see peace, happening, We might have a lull for maybe 10 or 20 years. Someone say, right, it's peace now. We've reached peace. And it'll spark up again in the future.
Despite all the attempts to change the ending, the bloody history of Northern Ireland is still being written on the walls, where today's children can read and remember. Or are they already yesterday's children? Richard Blystone, CNN, Northern Ireland. When Bill Love takes his son Aaron to school, it's an act of courage, a step in the name of peace. Hazelwood School in North Belfast is special. Catholics like Aaron and Protestants learn side by side. For hardline sectarians, that's a kind of betrayal. For the Love family, it's what education is all about.
People fear what they don't know, and from fear comes hatred. The only way that we can have an end to the hatred and bigotry and violence here is for people to come together.
How you going, Pete? Did you get enough brick, did you?
Paddy Doherty doesn't waste time talking peace.
Stop the mixer, boys.
He's the spirit behind a grassroots campaign to rebuild the wreckage that riots and bombings have left in Londonderry, and to rebuild lives, jobs, and self-respect. Slowly, brick on brick.
I work for growth and the acceptance of responsibility by everyone in the community. And if everybody is actively engaged in making decisions, that's the surest avenue to peace.
Help us accept each other as Christ accepted us.
At Corrymeela, an interfaith retreat on the north coast of Ireland, weekend refugees from both sides of the sectarian divide get to know each other and themselves.
It's a long-term one of patience and understanding and growth, being able to live with the disappointments, the murders, the assassinations, and say there has to be a way forward through this.
3 ways in which hope keeps trying after so many approaches have failed. The British government has tried everything but walking away. Power sharing, new housing, laws against discrimination, a consulting role for the Irish Republic, and 10,000 troops. And the troubles go on without a climax, without an end.
Well, it seems like a lingering disease.
Simply put, the troubles go on because enough people in Northern Ireland would rather live with a certain level of violence than accept a political solution they don't want. As long as sectarianism rules, Catholics, made a political minority by the partition of Ireland, face losing any vote every time and feel powerless. Protestants see the same happening to them if Ireland were reunited and they became the minority. Still, dozens of groups work in various ways for reconciliation. These activists don't talk much about religion or political structures, but about people.
Marches, confrontations by the army, 13 of our people were shot dead on Bloody Sunday, thousands were arrested, and the city was in ruins.
Paddy Doherty is a student of his historic city and a 20-year veteran of its troubles. Back to the Catholic civil rights marches for equality in voting, housing, and jobs. Back to the bloody aftermath. Today, a walk in his hometown is a walk past his handiwork, and that of hundreds of his young recruits from Derry's Catholic slums, often the first in their families in 3 generations to see a way out of a life of unemployment and apathy.
And apathy is frozen violence. The end result of an apathetic people is that the violence will come out somewhere and you will not be able to control it.
1, 2, 3.
At Aaron Love's school, Hazelwood, the faith that things can change is tempered by the knowledge that they haven't changed much yet.
Oh my God, something wrong with you? I don't think you can be a part of our group anymore, Richard. Why not? Like some of those Catholics and everything. It's to stop the troubles.
Here's a class role-playing how to respond when you're ridiculed or called a traitor for going to an integrated school.
Every child has to come here from their own communities. They'll pass the graffiti, they maybe be stoned on the way here or the way home. Just to imagine this is a sort of nice cozy cocoon where we create fluffy liberals would be wrong. If we did that, it would be wrong because we'd be sending rabbits into the wolf's den.
Corrymeela, the oldest peace group in Northern Ireland, knows how deep the hostilities lie because it specializes in pulling them out for scrutiny.
I don't like that flag at all.
The Catholics and Protestants in this group have been examining their feelings for 6 weekends and finding out how strong they are.
For me, the English nation has tried to take away our identity of being Irish, and to me it just makes me sick.
If I was a British subject, I'd be very ashamed of that flag and the way it's used.
You always say that British didn't allow you to be Irish. Seems to me you're saying exactly the same to me. You say, I can't be British, I've got to be Irish.
So far, Northern Ireland's problems have resisted all kinds of solutions. Today's activists keep going not because they expect to succeed, but because somebody's got to do something. Richard Blystone, CNN, Northern Ireland.
Palestinian children learn early the way of the warrior. Children who learn to hate from adults. Adults who learned to hate when they too were young.
And they were traumatized, and they were bitter, and they had decided that their only action, their only possibility, their only alternative was the violent reaction.
Fernando Mapose of Mozambique has had little time for play in his short life. He was recruited for a far more deadly game. Guerrillas forced him to lead a troop of other little soldiers in Mozambique's civil war. Only 14, Fernando Mapose is a seasoned killer.
He was physically tortured. I mean, in the beginning, Fernando didn't want to do this, and he resisted, and they broke one of his arms, and they twisted his fingers, and they brought a person to him finally, and he killed him. The most tragic thing that I've seen is how these young, hopeful, tender, often children, can be turned into machines and to lose their humanity.
They will often carry their scars, within and without, into adulthood, completing the cycle of violence against other children, perpetuating the most deeply entrenched conflicts on Earth. In Northern Ireland, Southeast Asia, Central America, the Middle East, Africa.
We have over 1,000 children dying every day at the present time as a consequence of conflicts that are going on around the world.
Of the 3 million people killed in Third World conflicts, more than half were children. In Lebanon, it is nearly 90%. More and more in today's wars, children are the victims and the soldiers. Mozambique has more child combatants than anywhere in the world.
If you're 10 years old or older, you're taken away to be trained to kill. It starts often by firing guns next to the child's head so he gets used to the sound of gunshot. And before they sort of graduate, someone from the base camp, some civilian, usually an elderly person or someone who's suspected of something, is brought to the child and the child's told to shoot this person. If they don't do what they're told, parts of their fingers are cut off, parts of their ears are cut off, parts of their noses are cut off, or they're killed.
For the children of war, fear and hatred are seeds of violent adult behavior.
Tell me, what do you think would happen if there were no rules?
Washington, D.C. psychologist Rona Fields is plumbing the emotional depths of viciousness.
Tell me about this one.
She uses a series of ambiguous picture cards called thematic apperception tests. In Northern Ireland,
He's probably killing his daddy. He's looking at something. He's going to phone an ambulance.
He's going to phone an ambulance and they're killing his daddy?
in Nicaragua.
I see that someone's being assassinated. There's a young person there with a rifle. I think she was assassinated by bad people, and maybe even a soldier.
This is a transgenerational thing, and unless the social political basis of it is resolved and a new and safe and secure identity, a positive identity, can be evolved, this will happen over and over and over again.
Shortly after the First World War, the League of Nations adopted the Declaration of the Rights of the Child. It called for the care and protection of children on both sides of a conflict. 60 years later, there are few who listen. The United Nations is struggling to ratify a proclamation banning anyone under the age of 18 from fighting in an armed conflict, though it is not likely to stop the practice.
We believe it will, that it will be adopted by the General Assembly this November. Now, a lot of this depends upon world public opinion.
In this tiny corner of hell, Fernando Mapose and a few score of the thousands of brutalized children of Mozambique are cared for at the world's first rehabilitation center for child soldiers. It was opened less than a year ago with aid from the international relief organization Save the Children. In the Maputo Center, part of the therapy is to enable the children to return to the childhood pursuits denied them while they were with the rebel forces. They are also forced to confront their own traumas of war by acting them out, a kind of sociodrama called displacement. In this video taken by the center, the children are recreating one unspeakable day in the personal nightmare of Furniss Narala. He was 6 when guerrillas forced him to set his family's hut ablaze, ordered to watch as his parents and 5 brothers and sisters were beheaded. He spoke few words when he came to the Maputo Center nearly a year ago, an escapee from a rebel camp. He speaks and smiles more now. He is coping. Furniss Narala and Fernando Mapose have become close friends. They are beginning to think about their future.
What they do with that struggle, what they do with that pain, to what extent can they understand it, to what extent can they act in spite of that, remains to be seen. I mean, this will be something they'll be working out the rest of their lives.
In lands scarred by poverty and bloodshed, the moral values of a generation are being eroded by war. It is a desperate time for the children of nations in conflict. Peter Arnett, CNN, Mozambique.